It's the Scene World Podcast. I'm here. He's there. How's it going?
Good, good. I'm thrilled to talk to you again and record an intro for our podcast today.
Okay. In a minute, we'll be talking with Richard Löwenstein and Martin Amann. They're two of the guys. Oh, Richard is the main guy behind the new Amiga shooter Reshoot R, which will be coming out at some point in the future, as we will learn. Before that, there is news to cover, so let's do that.
Right. So, would you like to start?
Sure. Last week, or not last week, obviously, because we weren't doing anything last week. In the last podcast, we talked to Yves Bolognini from the Bolo Museum, and since then, they have made their funding.
Exactly, yes. He also has been on
You're
public
welcome.
television twice.
Because I'm sure that our podcast was responsible for a large amount of the funds that he was able to.
Hopefully.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah. Well, so actually how I got aware of the Bolo Museum was Amiga Bill, you know?
Yes.
And, from the Guru Meditation team. And so I said, okay, Switzerland, French part of Switzerland, it's nice, good, but you should do it in English as well, and and create awareness all around the world for your problem, So this is how the interview came to be, and I guess this awareness in the scene helped.
I'd say so, yeah. I saw that they started doing the first... people that donated a certain amount would get a tour of their storerooms, and they've begun to do those tours. So that's cool. They were also on TV, you said?
Yeah, 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We'll put a link to some of that in the podcast description so you can check out their TV spots. And if you want to still donate, I don't know if donations are still open. I assume they are, right?
Well, of course, now they are, still accepting money, but for, future plans, maybe a new building and so on.
Right.
That's something we also mentioned in the interview of the Bolo Museum. So you may want, if you listen to this here, you may want to check out the Bolo Museum interview.
Right. This was mostly going towards storage for what they already what they've got, because they were not able to keep the storage for free anymore, so they need to start paying rent. So that's what a lot of this went for here. Now that's been secured, so now they can start looking at other projects in the future. So that's pretty awesome.
Yep. So I just had a look. Yeah, the donation side is still open, so you can still donate.
Cool. So what's next? What do you got?
Well, unfortunately, we all know Jerry Ellsworth, and I had an interview with her. I think it was in 2013 about her journey into augmented reality with her product Cast
AR.
Cast AR, yeah, and they actually renamed the company after that product name because it became so famous. Then they got external funding and decided to refund anybody participating in the Kickstarter she did. And then they promised that once the market version is out, everybody would get a pair of the glasses. And unfortunately, the news is they shut down. They stopped operating. So they fired all people, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm reading here that originally she worked at Valve, and this was a project that they were working on at Valve, but They let her go, and they let her take with her the technology that she was working on. She started her own company, which is Technical Illusions. I don't know why I had a problem saying that. Technical Illusions with Rick Johnson. And they've been working on the Cast AR since then. So that's where that's been. But as of late June, they laid off around 70 people, which is most of their staff. And there's a core group that is still there that is working to sell the technology. So, in as much as it's a shame that this is going, that that the company has gone under, and they won't be doing any more of that. I feel like, I don't think that the project itself is necessarily gone. I'm sure that somebody is going to come in and pick it up. And potentially even, drag Jerry along with it, because...
I hope so.
Yeah.
If you watched the interview that I did with her, she even had a pair of prototype classes, and she explained in that video interview how that technology works, and it's just awesome. And we also know from our interview last year with Sean Hare that even the pioneer game designers actually are using that technology, like in the new Sociable Soccer, which is successor of Sensible Soccer. So, and actually,
they're using,
of course, it's
VR,
it's virtual reality, yeah. But Cast AR was also able to switch to virtual reality, because you could actually get caps for the classes, though they would be closed and work as virtual reality. So
there's some stuff.
Jerry's device was a 2-in-1 device. You could get augmented reality, which is looking through the classes on a surface that is reflecting, and having a closed device.
That's a way better idea than how a lot of things do augmented reality, because I have a pair of 3D thingies, or VR glasses. It's the kind you put your phone in, and here they are. And with these, you take this part off, right? And that lets your camera, the phone camera, actually look out. But and with that, you can see the world around you, and it can be augmented with information and whatever else. But I don't know what idiot is going to be walking around with this in public just for the augmented reality. This is not elegant. So something where, it's a smaller thing that actually works well. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I totally understand you. Yeah. So anyway, if you're interested in that, look and watch the interview that I did with her, where she explained the technology.
We'll also put links to Cast AR and all the other stuff that has to do with that in the podcast description, so you can go there and look at it and learn what we know.
Sure. Yes, well, other news. Yeah, well, as you probably heard, the SNES Classic Mini has been released for pre-order.
Or the SNES.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, because we had this discussion, AJ and me, how the 20-something people on YouTube that haven't grown up with the SNES call it SNES.
I don't know anybody that has ever called it the SNES. It's the SNES.
Well, the youngsters call it SNES.
Actually, we always just called it the Super Nintendo. We never called it even the SNES. It's just Super Nintendo.
I know. Oh, yes, me too. Yeah.
I don't know where these kids these days are getting this from.
SNES. It sounds cooler, isn't it? SNES.
It does not sound cooler. It sounds like it's like a sneeze that never quite gets there. It's just like when you think you're gonna sneeze. SNES. Yeah, when you think you're gonna sneeze and you don't. That's a SNES.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Anyway, they are releasing 3 models. September 29th is the release date, and the pre-orders were pretty much done within 10 minutes on any shop where there have been yet. For example, Amazon Germany, 10 minutes was over. Otto, which is also a mail trader here, 1 hour it was over. So I got a pre-order place too. So hopefully I get one. And interestingly, the difference here between the NES Classic Mini that I got because it was on German television, thank you again Nintendo Germany and ZDF for that possibility. This time there are 3 models because the Americans had a different design.
We had the ugly
and
one.
Yeah, the ugly one, and that is actually why Americans now offer the European version to Americans for pre-order on high prices at eBay. You're welcome. So there will be 3 models: the Super Famicom, the SNES Europe, and the SNES American. The games will be the same as European and American, but the Japanese one will have more exclusive game. And it's also the first time in history that Star Fox 2 is getting an official release. Because the game was done, the source code leaked, you can get reproduction cartridges, but Nintendo never officially released the game. And that will be your chance to officially release the game, to officially play the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
For some reason, I felt like that was out. Like Star Fox 2 was a thing, but
Nope.
I don't know.
Nope.
I wasn't really big into Nintendo back in the day.
Well, I was always a Sega fanboy, but Sega was twice as expensive as...
Was it?
Yeah, in Germany it was twice as expensive as Nintendo. This is why Nintendo had a lead here.
I had an original, like I had an NES, but my brother had an SNES later. He was of the younger generation that got those. I was a little.
And he didn't call him SNES.
We didn't call it a SNES, no. He had one of those. I still have the regular old NES, but I don't remember. I played Donkey Kong Country, I think, was the only game that I actually played on it.
The Super NES.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mario Kart. Mario Kart. Played that. The original Mario Kart.
Yep. It will also be on the SNES Classic Mini.
All right, that's a classic.
Yep, definitely.
I never played any of the later Mario games because, I don't know, to me, Super Mario Brothers 3 is like the pinnacle. It's the best one.
Yep.
It doesn't get better past that. All the ones on Super Nintendo felt a little weird.
I liked it.
Really?
Especially the second one, Yoshi's Island.
I mean, I thought they weren't bad games. I just didn't. They didn't get me like Super Mario Brothers 3 did.
Anyway, talking about that, Hyperkin is actually coming out with a new product. Hyperkin Hyper-Click Retro Style Mouse for SNES. Oh my god. That's the product name. You're welcome. $20. It's fun because there are only 2 major products on the SNES that actually use the mouse, and that was Mario Paint and the Super Game Boy. And most owners of the Super Game Boy didn't even know that a mouse was supported because it was not written in the manual. So I always had a Super Game Boy, and I never plugged in the mouse to use it because I didn't know I could. Anyway, AJ will get one for me. Thank you.
Mario Paint, it was a big deal, so I can understand there being
a
market.
Yeah, but the pain in the ass was that it took 10 minutes to load what you saved.
Yeah.
Which I still don't understand why it takes so long.
It took about 4 years to work on any meaningful animation.
Well, of course, I can understand that, but I don't know why saving and loading takes so long on Flash technology. I have no idea.
I don't know. Was that? Well, it may not have been fast Flash technology. I mean,
but 10 minutes, seriously? That's slower than a tape drive.
There's other things. There's other factors. I mean, I've got the SD to IEC for the C64. and without a fast load, it operates at about the same speed as a 1541. But it's an SD card, so saving an 8K file onto an SD card or smaller than that file should only take a second, or even less than a second. But it takes the full length of time it would take for a 1541 to do it because of the throughput of the C64 serial ports.
So you think the hardware was the bottleneck here?
Oh, I'm sure it was, yeah.
Because actually that is why, for example, Sam's Journey, the new Protovision game, is using ROI support for the NTSC compatibility to use it as an expandable RAM to move memory location for scrolling around. And it's faster than the internal RAM of the Z64 from what I read. So if even in the 80s already it was blazing fast, should have been in the 90s when the Super NES was out. So probably you're right. Probably it's a system bottleneck on the hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Hyperkin is really throwing out retro hardware like nothing. Like the Game Boy development kit that even worked now with the new Samsung, because they did a partnership with the new Samsung. So you can actually put in your Samsung Galaxy, the latest model, put in that mock-up of the Game Boy, and then you have a real Game Boy and your smartphone is a screen, and you have a real port for your Game Boy games to put in. That's awesome.
Okay.
That's totally awesome. So Hyperkin is doing really top-notch quality retro hardware. That's totally amazing. And if even Samsung partners with them to make an OEM version for their phones, can only mean it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I will paint something with the new mouse.
Go for it. We can make the new Scene World like the intro animation. Make it in Mario Paint.
Yeah, and then convert it to Nuvi, animation.
There you go. Just capture it. Just use your capture card to capture the animation into a movie file, and bloop, there we go.
It's that easy, I bet.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So, okay, so is that now we got something?
Why do I say red? I don't know.
What's that?
It's probably it's red. Yeah, it's red.
Red?
Like red, like super cool.
Oh, rad. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so what else we've got?
We got something from Cloanto.
Oh yes, Cloanto released a new C64 Forever version and a new Amiga Forever version, and we will link to the links they sent to me from the newsletter.
Question that I have.
Yeah.
Because I know Cloanto has the rights to
the Amiga. And
I believe they have rights to the Amiga, the classic Amiga, right? So Cloanto has rights to the classic Amiga Kickstart and maybe Workbench, and they are able to therefore make these Amiga Forever things. It's basically an emulator that runs on on Windows and maybe Macs. No, just Windows. And they also still put out the Kickstart. I mean, my Amiga 500 over here has an officially licensed Cloanto Kickstart 3.1 in it.
Wow.
But I don't know what they have to do with the C64.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe they got a license.
I don't recall ever hearing anything about that. And I think that I would have, because that would have been
well.
big.
I don't think it's illegal. I don't think it's illegal. Cloanto seems to be very, very, very.
Oh, I don't think it's illegal. I just don't
on
understand why. how that works exactly. I mean, it's basically just an emulation package, right? You know, so Vice could do the same thing, but whatever.
I will try it out and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, other news is, by the time you hear this, our new news portal will be out, C64 TV, and actually worked with Martin Amann on realizing that and putting it into reality. So that will be our new news portal for C64 news. So, and you can even submit your own news. Just click on submit news, and then we get a notification, and then we actually post it on our social channel. So, C64 TV.
Cool.
Got the domain name and thought we should do something useful with that. So hope you will like it. It will be a big side project of Sceneboard. Other news. After 2 years, we got a new webmaster. Sören Raufeisen, aka P. Collins, is our new webmaster. He's also doing the BBS for Access, and now he joined us. So the Scene World homepage should see some improvements while we go along with him modifying the page a bit. One thing is, you shouldn't see any error messages on the SSL saying that there are insecure elements still they're trying to load. That should be gone pretty soon. Yeah.
Very nice.
On this opportunity, I also want to say thank you to everybody who actually helped us to survive without having a proper webmaster. That includes me and AJ sitting trying to fix our homepage, emailing scene.org because we broke something and needed to get a backup back, or Menno Peterson from the Netherlands, who's actually a Modex freak, and he helped us a number of times to solve big problems we had. So thanks for that. And also Scene.org, who actually started supporting Let's Encrypt for SSL because we asked them to. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. So hopefully that homepage issue won't be an issue anymore, because now we got a new professional webmaster here.
Yes, indeedy.
Other news, we will be on Gamescom again at the third week of August, and we will be probably again at 10.2 Family and Friends area, as we have always been the last years. And so we will also have a surprise for you if you come to our booth. We will again have something new.
Oh boy.
You know?
Oh boy.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
I
We
do.
should
I
mention
do.
it in the podcast. Do not spoil the surprise.
I want to give a thank you to Blue Microphones, because this thing broke.
Okay.
Actually, not this one. This is a totally... I had one of these things.
Well, it doesn't look blue. It looks gray to me.
Yeah, well, you know. This thing, the one that I had broke. It's a thing that
Was
apparently...
it blue?
No, it wasn't.
So it's a company
It was
name.
yes, yeah. It's apparently a thing that happens with microphones.
So why not make a company, call them Blue Microphones, and make gray microphones? That's
right.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, I interrupted you. Go on.
I contacted them. I was well out of warranty. They still took it and sent me a new one for free. So awesome.
So you told them you have a very important podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. I said I can't be missing this podcast. I can't be doing this with my built-in microphone here. This isn't cool. And they were like, "We'll be right on that, sir."
Nice. So you see, here at Scene World, we make everything happening just for you.
Wasn't quite that But I did get a new one. It was free, and even though it was out of warranty, so I endorse them. They're good company.
Nice.
And you got something about FriendOS.
Yes, FriendOS actually released 1.0. That means they finally got the major step. That's pretty neat. So we will link to that, and we will also link to that interview we did at Gamescom last year, where they had a presence there, and where David Pleasance actually spoke on the retro area stage and talk about the old times of Commodore. And again, a lot of people ask, what is FriendOS again? And FriendOS is a bit like Amiga OS, but a network in the cloud. So that is how it's connected to the Amiga.
Yeah, it's Amiga OS based, or it's like a variation of that, just like with MorphOS or Aros, I think is another one. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of Amiga based OSs kicking around out there, more than you'd think.
Yeah. But well, they promise to be kicking anyway. You can learn more about that in our interview that we did with FriendOS. So we'll link to that too.
Okay.
We interviewed so many people. There's
can't remember who they are.
Right. All right. So, any other news I've missed?
I think that's it. I think we can pop over now. We have Richard.
Well, we should mention Protovision is releasing a lot of games.
Yes, they are. They are. I've got two here on my screen, which is that they're taking orders for Sam's Journey, which is a platformer and looks pretty cool. Yeah.
It's supposed to be groundbreaking. I saw it last year in Gamescom, and I can confirm it's never been so much 4-dimension vague scrolling, so smooth the way this is.
Okay. And
it's even NTSC compatible. It's using the ROI they wrote. Yeah, they're using a ROI to actually compensate for the missing raster time the NTSC machines have compared to PAL. So to copy around the memory locations for the scrolling.
And they're developing another one called Wormhole, which looks like another platformer. Looks pretty good.
Yep. That's true.
There's actually a couple others. If you go on to Indie Retro News, there's quite a few new games that are popping around.
Or on Protovision.games, the official homepage. For example, they are still developing Civilizations 8-bit. You can get the demo by Fabian Hartl on the homepage. That we mentioned in our last podcast, actually.
Yep.
They have Outrage that they are working on,
right?
Which is a pretty neat action platformer adventure thing game with very, very pretty graphics. On the title screen, this looks a bit like Rambo. Yep. And Jakob Wo's Check to Rip is actually still working on Packet, which is a Pac-Man clone for the 4-player adapter. So, yeah.
Cool. There's another one. Charles Gray is releasing a game called Vaultman 2. So that's new as of today.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yesterday, rather, it was posted.
Oh.
So I mean, there's lots of stuff, lots of development still happening for the C64.
Yep. And there's the Protovision Games competition, also called PGC 2017. And that's happening from the 1st of July until the 30th of April 2018.
Yep. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, Martin Amann, who is over there, he's actually one of us, and he's also part of this game. We've done lots of stuff with him before.
Let's plays, for example.
We've done Let's Plays. We've done lots of things. We love Martin. and he will be joining us on this one because he is part of the development of this game. So he is over there, and Richard Löwenstein is over there. And so let's talk about Reshoot R. And this is going to be kind of, we're doing this one a little bit differently. We're going to be a little on the bottom because when we recorded this, we had a little bit of recording difficulty, so our video wasn't fantastic. So we're going to be little while we show you lots of games. So
yeah, because Richard is known for his games.
Yes, so we're going to be showcasing that whilst we talk. So
great. Okay, so today we are talking to Richard Löwenstein and Martin Amann, and we are talking to them, first of all, of course, because of the history of Richard, how he got into the game industry and so on. And they are also working on a new Amiga game called Reshoot R, and we will talk about that as well. So
Great.
Welcome to the show, Richard. Great to have you here.
Thanks for the invitation.
No problem. So I guess let's start a bit with how did you actually, Richard, get into computers?
Into computers. Let me see. It must be like the year 1980 or something, or 1982, when I got my first games console. Probably even earlier, probably 1979, and it was like a very simple Pong console, which could have just play a handful of games like Pong and Pong for 2 and Pong for 4, and that's when the whole game thing caught me up, and just a couple of years later, I like a lot of people, I was infected by the home computer virus. So I asked my dad if I could get a home computer for birthday or probably for Christmas. I'm not too sure about that. And I first I wanted to have a ZX81, and but instead I got a Texas Instruments 99 4A, because my dad said that if I should get into this home computer hobby thing, I should do this with a proper computer, and that's basically how I got my first computer, and that's how I started getting used to program computers, because the Texas Instruments was very easy to develop for, because it had a very good so-called extended basic, which had a lot of commands for having nice graphics. And the first time you see graphics moving around the screen, which you did yourself, you're infected for the rest of your life. So that's how it all started. When I said that I got a Texas Instruments computer, I should probably add that I was like 11 or 12 years old, and probably 4 years later I developed my first commercial game. Yeah, this was not really for Magic Bytes, that was later, but for Firebird Software, which was a Commodore 64 game called Twinkie Goes Hiking. And I don't suppose anyone knows it who listens to this podcast now, but it's a very nice little jump and run for two players playing simultaneously. And with this game, even though it did not make me a millionaire, I caught the attention of a couple of software developers, and one of them was Magic Bytes, who approached me and asked if I would want to develop the Commodore 64 conversion of a game called Persian Gulf Inferno, which was like a shooting. You would call it kind of run and gun game today, and it was like one guy entering oil how's that called, oil drilling platform, yeah. and just killing a lot of terrorists, and occasionally trying to disarm explosives and also free some hostages. And well, yeah, I did the Commodore 64 version of this one. And
I read actually that there was a censored version for Germany called North Sea Inferno of the same game.
Exactly. It's exactly the same game. It had a different title screen, and I think with the Amiga version they also scrapped some kind of war cry in the title screen. But that's all the differences. I did not really change any sprites, or I did not change any gameplay as far as I remember. And you still had real pistols and real guns and real submachine guns, and you still had terrorists falling to the floor, and so no changes, just the title screen. Yeah.
That's good to know, because that was actually one of my questions I had in mind, because the internet isn't very sure about that. The C64 wiki says that the gameplay was altered so much that the censored version got the golden cucumber of the month.
No. No, this was
okay.
No, you're talking about the review in the Powerplay magazine, right?
Yes, exactly.
It was just a review in one German magazine. The game also got kind of good reviews in other magazines. And actually, I talked to the guy who did the review. He's called Heinrich Lehnhardt. He's quite well known in the.
I know him too. Yes.
Yeah, he's quite well known. And I talked to him. Why did you not like my game, whereas a lot of people like it? I mean, he could not really remember. But well, I mean, there's no change whatsoever in the German version related to the gameplay. So that's
okay. That means the entry in C64 wiki is wrong. Just to get this right.
If the entry is like you said, then it's wrong.
Wow, good to know. Thank you. Well, that was pretty good questions I had in mind. Yeah. Yes, but as I said, in other publications it got really good reviews. So just one mishap.
Well, to be honest, I mean, in hindsight, I would say that there are a couple of things I would develop it differently today. And it was not a great game. It was an okay game. You could play it, and it was kind of, it was fun for 1, 2, 3 hours or something. And there were lots of worse games on the Commodore 64, but there were also lots of real great games which were better than mine, but still it's not too bad. And I 1 or 2 years ago I checked some kind of Metacritic retro games platform where people rate games from former times, but they rate them today. And Northern Inferno got like, I don't know, probably 6.7 out of 10 points or 7.1, something like that. And it's kind of okay. So but that's one of the games I would actually, which I could imagine would be fun to redevelop again and see how it would look like today if I would, use all the knowledge I gathered from the last 20, 30 years, and put them all into a new version of the game.
But you also worked as a chief editor for German game magazines after your coding career, right?
Yeah, that's right. When I had finished work on North Inferno and a couple of other games, I don't know exactly how it came to be, but I did already write some reviews for a German computer games magazine, or a German computer magazine called Happy Computer, and I like to review software and write about it and bring the message to the masses. So with the age of, I don't know, probably 20, I said to myself, okay, why not work as a journalist, as a games journalist, and that's how I wrote to the guys from the German computer games magazine Amiga Joker, which was established in 1991, and I joined the team at the end of 1991, and I stayed there for like almost 10 years with 1 or 2 breaks, but yeah, anyway, I stayed there for 10 years, and And after that, I worked as a staff writer, and also progressed like to editor-in-chief, editor, something like that, and not only for Amiga Joker, but later for PC Joker too. So that's how I started my so-called career as a games journalist.
It must be an advantage to know the other side when you are a journalist and you know how much effort a coder has put into a game that's review, because you know how it has to be done in a way.
I have a lot of respect. I do know that it's not fair to just simply bash a game just because I don't like one or two features. I mean that's just not fair, because even bad games, there are a lot of people who put a lot of effort and time and money to get this game together, and it's perfectly fine to tell the potential buyers of a game, hey, these are the weak points of a game and these are the strong points of a game. But I don't see any reason to bash a game, because I do know that it's just not fair to the people who were involved in the development of a game. And also, very often as a journalist, you get to talk to developers, or mostly PR guys, who try to tell you some stories, how the game was developed and how fast it runs and how fast the frame rate is, or something like that. And when you do develop yourself, you just know that sometimes it's probably not exactly the truth they're telling you. It's probably more like a plan, like a master plan, but probably not what is actually what you can actually see. Like, for example, I was very often told when we talked about the frame rate of a game, because to me a frame rate is kind of essential to a real good computer game. Very often when I spoke to developers or PR guys about the frame rate of games, they always told me like, this is 50 or 60 frames, this is perfectly fluid and something like that. But actually I can see how fast a game runs. A lot of people can't see it because they probably lack the practice or the years of experience that I have. But I can actually see it. And so I sometimes see that when someone talks to me and tells me like, this is 50 frames, I can see it's just 20 or 15. And then I can ask the developer, why you're telling me like this has 50 frames, whereas I can clearly see it's just 15 or 20 frames. And this leads to a kind of discussion, which is interesting, because if a developer knows that a journalist is not just a journalist, but also a developer, and he knows his stuff, then the discussion is totally different. He gets to talk a little bit more, and he gets into his comfort zone of developing games, and that means that he's more open-minded, and he tends to tell you a bit more than he is probably telling journalists who don't know a thing about development of games.
Okay. Interesting. Yes, but there were times where frame rates weren't everything. I mean, for example, the very famous game Trailer that had 1 frame every 5 seconds on the C64. It was a pretty good success because it was one of the 3D games on the C64, even though it was horribly slow.
What game are you talking about?
Thriller.
Thriller.
Oh,
Thriller.
Thriller. This 3D adventure.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like through pyramids or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it had polygons.
Yeah.
And it was 1 frame 5 seconds.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, frame rate is not everything. It's just it was just an example. It was just an example of, like, for racing games, frame rate is essential, but for adventures, well, probably not as essential. Probably it's more important that you have a good story to tell. But you could also talk about good storytelling. It really depends on the game. So frame rate is not everything, of course. You're right.
And how did it happen that you now start making Amiga games again?
I mean, would you want to talk to Martin or something like? Because this is a very long story, and it's probably it's probably too boring for the listeners of the podcast to just listen to me. Or should I just tell?
No.
I mean, it's your decision.
Both
Tell
of
it.
you, of course. We're proud of
But I will start to talk when it's got to Reshoot R. So
it. Okay. Well, no, I mean, I'm just thinking, being a coder, then going into writing for magazines, and then jumping back for classic computing coding.
Yeah.
There must be reason to go back. I mean, even though retro is a hype, and that is what we often talk about with our guests in this podcast, it's not like there's a big money behind it.
No.
But it's very few exceptions, of course.
Yeah. Well, I don't know one of these exceptions, but we will see with Reshoot R if there's any money to be made. But I mean, it's the short version of the story goes like this. So I already told you earlier that I started working at Amiga Joker in 1991, and before that I developed games. But I did not only develop games for Texas Instruments and for Commodore 64, but I also started developing games for the Amiga computer. That was like probably 1988 or 89 or something like that. And anyway, I started to develop a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up. Probably in 1989. I'm not too sure about that, but anyway, when I started to work for the Amiga Joker magazine, there was no time left to really progress developing the game. So because it's working as a games journalist means you have to invest a whole lot of time. You do not really you do not just write reviews, but you also play games, and everyone can imagine, this takes up a whole lot of time. So there was no time left, unfortunately, to continue developing for my Amiga game. So that's when my work as a game developer stopped. And many years later, actually just probably 2 years ago, I did clean up my a whole lot of stuff. I had a big collection of retro games and retro hardware, and I decided I don't need anything. I just want to sell it, give it to people who really love this, like an Amiga 4000 or a CD32 console or a Mega Drive or Super Nintendo, whatever. And I decided to just keep my just a couple of machines, and one of them was my Amiga 1200. And when I decided to keep it with me, I also decided it needs a little bit of cleanup. So I just how's that? It was recapped. Is that a word which can be used? Yeah.
Yes, recapped. That's exactly the word.
It was recapped, and it was, the whole keyboard was cleaned, everything was cleaned basically, and also I took all the discs I had from my time as a developer, and I had a look at them, like 20 years after I ceased developing for the Amiga computer, and that's how I found the original source code of the shoot 'em up game, which I started in 1989. And as it came to be, this was the same time when I got to be father for the second time. So my daughter was born, and as probably some of your listeners know that a baby tends to cry at night. So so I shared the woodwork with my girlfriend, and I sometimes when a baby cried, I just did some food for my daughter. And after that, I sometimes just couldn't get back to sleep. So I decided, okay, what to do now? What to do with my time? Some people read, some people watch TV, and I decided, well, why not develop an Amiga game? so
Good decision.
so
Okay.
that's how I just basically took my very old source code from 1989, and I decided, okay, why not finish the work which I started a lot of years ago and develop at least one really good Amiga game in my lifetime. And well, that's basically how it came to be. And this was 2 years ago, and this led to a game called Reshoot, which looks like this. And it was published last year at the Gamescom show, so in August 2016. And I mean, it's the whole fascination, or the whole idea of developing for the Amiga was also, of course, fueled by the whole retro gaming thing going on, especially on the Commodore 64 right now, but also on some other platforms. I also felt that I saw a lot of really great new games on the Commodore 64, but not so much on the Amiga computer. In fact, I didn't really see one impressive new Amiga game. There were a couple of games, but they were kind of okay, but they didn't really look anything like the great games we had in the early 90s. Whereas on the Commodore 64, I saw some games which looked even better than anything I had ever seen on the Commodore 64. Yeah. And so that's when I decided, okay, why not at least try to develop something which looks a little bit like a commercial game from the 90s. And so that's how Reshoot came to be. And I developed Reshoot within 1 year, and I learned a lot of things. And some of these things which I learned within the time frame of the Reshoot development, I tried to incorporate in a new game, which is currently in development. This game is called Reshoot R, and I think we've got another guy here in this small party who's also involved in developing this game, right, Martin? Right.
Right. So, what should I say?
Well, I mean, the thing is, how did it actually happen that you became the guy making the music for the new Reshoot R? Is it really like, oh, the music needs to be better, and Richard said, okay, improve it, do it yourself, and then you say, yes, okay, I do it?
Hey!
Well, kind of.
It was great!
Yeah, to be fair, the music was really great from Reshoot, but when we were at Gamescom in Cologne, I first got the game there. We were there at the fair with Patrick Nevian, who's head of AmiWorks, who are distributing this game. And
yeah, we should mention he is mostly known for his piano interpretation of Chris Hülsbeck Turrican music and other pieces.
And his band Blue Metal Rose, which is very good indeed. And we were and we were sitting in the fair, and we had an Amiga 1200 there, and were playing the game. And after playing this Reshoot for 3 days, I was sitting there with my beautiful wife, and we were playing and playing and playing and playing, but we never got that far that we could hear the main feature of the game music, which was actually that the game music, which was I don't know the format, but it's chip music, isn't it, Richard?
Exactly. It's
HX,
it's using it's a TFX format, which is kind of emulating the SID audio chip from the Commodore 64. I did use this tracker because it's basically a tracker. It sounds like a Commodore 64 audio. And I'm just a fan of Commodore 64 music. That's a simple reason for this decision.
Well, we can do some remixes of the actual music, so in C64 style. Nevertheless, we were playing the game and we weren't that good that we got so far that we could see the main feature of the music, which is actually that the music increases speed while the game increases speed too. So if you play long enough, the music gets quicker and better and bolder and bigger. But we never got that far. So we were sitting at the booth and playing and I was, what's wrong with the music? What's so wrong with this music? So I first got to know Richard and I said to him, hey, you're doing actually so good Amiga games here. We see an actual Amiga game looking as good as in the good old times. Why don't you use just music we used there when we played the games? We used Pro Tracker and stuff, and we had digital music, and we thought Amiga is the actual shit because we had no hardware, no synthesizers, we had no money for this. We had the Amiga, we had the Paula chip, and when we made a lot of music back in the days. And I said, if you do a follow-up, please do some better music. And Richard said, "Well, I like the music, and I don't want to say that this is not that good, but he said just try it. But don't forget, you just got 3 channels for your music." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it with 2."
It sounds like Star Trek.
The 2 versus 3 versus 4 channel discussion came up to be because you need sound effects. And I'm not only a big fan of Commodore 64 music, but also of having music and sound effects simultaneously, which was not that common on the Amiga in former times, by the way. And I said, okay, Martin, let's try this. But if we try it, I desperately need you to just use 2 or 3 channels so that we can have a lot of sound effects too, but not only great audio, but also not only great music, but also great sound effects. And Martin really, I kind of really tell you what kind of great work he did on the music, and I'm really keen to get some reaction from the people outside the first time they really get to listen to Martin's music. And I think everyone will love it because it's actually better than the most things, almost everything I've ever heard in the 90s. And I really hope that most people will share my opinion. We will see.
We will see. Don't get Chris Hülsbeck to hear this.
Well, we should mention what Richard is actually talking about. I think it's called multiplexing. You are switching instruments very fast because you only have 2 voices instead of 3, so you have to switch the voices pretty fast. The instruments. So it sounds actually like you have more instruments playing at one time than you actually have. I know this because I once did an interview with Jeroen Tel, and he kind of perfectionized this multiplexing technology when he did RoboCop 3 and the Turtles coin-up for the C64. He only had 1 channel for the music and 2 channels for SFX. So, and I think it's this multiplexing you're referring to, right?
Well, not really,
not really. Okay.
The Amiga has got 4 channels to use, and we said that we had a maximum of 3 to use. So 1 channel is free for the sound effects. To be honest, Richard tried to switch the channels and to rotate the sound effects through all the 4 channels, but I had this idea. I didn't want to make just music on 3 channels and to get this feeling that there are only 3 channels. I wanted to listen. If you listen to the music, you have to have the impression that there are 6 or 8 channels.
Wow. Okay.
So I I tried to use some modern DAWs like Cubase in this case, and did a lot of sound design with my synthesizers and samples, and did some backing track where bass, percussions, drums, and things are combined, and then are cut into little pieces. And these pieces are just put together in real time by ProTracker, and I used a lot of techniques in ProTrackers itself to do some filter techniques, free emulation, and so on. So I just used 3 channels, and if you count it, I will try now. It's a bass. Yeah, these are 7 to 8 channels simultaneously.
Wow. Okay, so a totally different approach. Okay.
Yeah, just I had this problem doing music now, semi-professional for years now. Richard came up and said, well, not just 3 channels. Don't forget, there are only 200 of kilobytes. And I said, oh, this is just a little problem. So I did the first track, which I gave to him, which was for his trailer video for YouTube. And it was actually 430 kilobytes.
Which was planned for the reveal trailer, but this has not yet happened because of other things going on. So the music exists for a couple of weeks now, but there's no trailer as yet. But this is soon to be changed.
Okay, so very interested to see it then.
Yeah,
it's an interesting approach. Okay.
Yeah, sure it is, and so we did the soundtrack, and then I had this problem that it was quite too big, and so when I went to Revision this year, which was, by the way, my first demo party here, which I attended, I got to know a lot of freaks and programmers, and I talked a lot to people what to do to get this module just smaller, to get it smaller without a lack of quality. So and then after talking a lot and doing some stuff with in Facebook with a lot of people there, I got to know Dax from the Ravebusters, which is one of my little childhood heroes. I really heard every module he was making since 1993, and so we got to talk, and well, he did a lot of doing some improvements to the music in the end. So he got the samples. Yeah, how to say it? They're smaller, but they sound the same at the end. He had some approach which we tested, which weren't that good, where he just got from 430 kilobytes to 120 kilobytes, but the music wasn't that good anymore. So we got anywhere in the middle, and then we said, okay, this is enough. And so we could use the other kilobytes we had there for the samples, just like shoot samples and explosion samples and so on.
I think we have like 200 kilobytes now.
260.
Yeah.
Roundabout.
But it's the quality is still the same or even better.
Yeah, it's nearly like the original file, which is fantastic.
Yeah. By the way, there's getting back to this multiplexing idea. This is something which is also discussed in the official Commodore Amiga documentation. It's of course possible to mix to mix voices in real time, to get 8 voices or even more. But this is a very old technique, which which is already being discussed in the original Amiga documentation, which developers got from Commodore. But this takes away a lot of processing time. So this means if you're mixing voices in real time, you get like 8 voices or 6 voices, whatever. But it all takes away. It means you cannot put as many sprites or splitter objects or moving objects on screen, or probably the frame rate of a game goes down. And this is a balance you have to make. You have to decide what is important for your game. Is the sound quality the most important aspect of your game? If you decide, okay, my game is all about music and nothing else, then you would probably mix voices, and then you would be able to use or kind of use 8 voices. But if you decide you want a real fast game which has a lot of stuff going on screen and which has a high frame rate, which means a fluid gameplay experience, then you can. There are some things which you can't do, and one of these things is you cannot have like 20 more than 16 colors, and you also can't have more than 4 voices of audio, and that's just a decision, And in the case of Reshoot R, the decision was really easy to make because mixing voices is just too time consuming, too processor consuming, and it's just not possible to have that and also a very fast gameplay experience.
Yeah. So that means
but really, I mean, if you will listen to Martin's music and you will not miss anything because it's just great, and it's exactly like he said. It sounds like he uses 6 voices. Plus, the sound effects sound like we have another 10 channels. So, well, not exact, but it's really. There were not many games which have a comparable audio quality. I would say it's on a par with. It sounds like Silkworm. For example, Silkworm is one of these Amiga games which I really adore because they're so fluid and so fast, and they sound great and they look great. And I think what Martin did with his music is comparable to like the 10 or 20 best games we ever saw on the Amiga.
And it's the only game that has AJ's girlfriend's voice in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get to know the guy with the girlfriend who did this voice acting.
Yes. Okay.
We were sitting here like, let's use an artificial voice, and then AJ was like, "Oh, wait a second, I have a girlfriend." Yeah.
I have a girlfriend.
Hey. we couldn't get the computer to say it right, so I was just like, here, just talk, just say this word.
Yeah. So we have like escalation now, and we have extra
and weapon. I don't know.
Yeah.
The weapon was so great. The weapon was so amazing. Yeah, I actually when I got the weapon sample, I decided I need to change something in the game design because I want to use the sample because it sounds great. It's just a good sample.
Glad to be of help.
That's the nice thing about developing for a retro platform. There's no marketing guy telling you to include this and include that because it sells better. But you just hear a sample, you like it, and you just put it into the game just because you like it. And that's what retro game development is all about. You just do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. But of course it wasn't always like that, No. I guess no.
What do you mean?
I mean, for example, the way Activision was actually founded was because Atari didn't want to give credits to the programmers and sound designers and graphic guys. They said, okay, so we are doing our own company, and that is how Activision was founded.
Exactly, but you're talking about commercial game development. I'm talking about retro game development.
Yeah, but the retro gaming of today was the commercial back in the days.
Exactly true. Yeah, but I mean, it's you're right. I mean, I always said that game developers should get a lot more credit for their work. I actually always thought it was a mistake that so few game development companies and publishers put people in the bright light, and make stars of these people. That's just a couple of people which have a name which at least some game players recognize, like Warren Spector, for example, or David Crane in the former times. But these are just very few names, and I think within the games industry, it would be nice to have a lot more stars, game developers as stars, which have a vision, which share their vision, which talk about their vision, and I I wish that a lot of game developers would get more credit than they actually do.
That's kind of like what EA used to do when Electronic Arts would make games. They put them out like an album where you'd open it up and it would have all the developers, a picture of them and everything on the inside.
Exactly.
That's Activision had that too, yeah.
Yeah, that's how they started in the 80s, and then it got lost somehow. Yeah.
The last time we interviewed a developer, it was actually Ron Gilbert, and AJ made up the point, well, you are Ron Gilbert, you can just go to any publisher and say, hey, I'm Ron Gilbert, fool.
Well, he can.
Yeah. But probably he can't, because, it's nowadays a good idea, a good game design or good gameplay idea is not worth too much if you approach a publisher. You have to not only sell your idea but also explain how you sell your idea to people outside. And you can only develop games nowadays which make profit, and this means a lot of compromises, because there's so many people involved nowadays. And it would mean that you cannot just include a sample because you love it. You would have to discuss it with like 20 people if you are able or allowed to include a sample. If it works in China as well as Germany as well as the United States, or probably it's insulting people in North Korea or something like that. You never know. And that's I don't care. I don't have to care about that.
Well, of course, there are a few exceptions. For example, Flappy Bird, which made a Vietnamese coder a millionaire.
Yeah.
Just by a simple idea.
Yeah. Look what Martin's doing.
Oh, nothing here.
Right. So, just to summarize it, you are doing it for fun, for the fun of it.
Well, what else could be the reason?
I don't know.
Actually, there's another reason. Yes, actually, it's not always fun. Developing software, not only games but developing software is, I would say, is like 80% of time. It's more like frustrating, and it's just the 20% of time which they are so fulfilling that they outweigh the moments or the many moments of frustration. But also you see all these so that actually means I'm kind of getting old a little bit, and this means I have to feed my brain with stuff which to keep my thinking young. And developing software is no matter if it's for an old platform or for a more recent platform, developing software is very it trains your brain. Well, that's at least what I think it does. And but yeah, actually that's one of the reasons I do it, because it's just food for your brain. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that means if we want to train our brain, we should code more Amiga games, and
why not?
And get more kids that let you stay up at night, so you have more time for coding.
Well, this is exactly what I am doing right now. In January, my next kid will come, and my wife said, I'm so happy. She wondered the last 4 years. She wondered, what are you doing in the cellar here? What are you doing at night? You should sleep. But now she says, oh, okay. Now I have the opinion to sleep for myself. Right. Okay, nice. You can go there and no?
More music for the next project after Reshoot R.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so coding and developing for the Amiga is now a bit different than it was 20 years ago, because that is actually what you mentioned at the beginning of the interview. You said if you could recode some of your early C64 games, you would change some things.
Yeah, exactly. Especially on the Commodore 64, because on the Commodore 64, in the past 20 years, the the people who still are involved in the whole development scene, especially the demo scene, they found out a lot of new tricks of what can be done with a Commodore 64. And one very good example is like scrolling the whole screen in full 16 colors. Now, if anyone of your listeners is a little bit into developing for the Commodore 64, he knows that scrolling a full screen on the Commodore 64 is kind of easy with 4 colors, but it's really hard to do with 16 colors. And some people, I mean, if you had a look at recent demos from the past 5, 6, 7 years, you will see like even big artwork, lots of small details and lots of colors, and they are even zooming these things, you know. Whereas in the former times, it wasn't really even possible to scroll with 16 colors. And so a whole of knowledge was gathered, and it's being shared over the internet, which was not possible in the 80s and 90s, you know. While now everyone can just Google information, you know. In the 80s, you had to buy a book, and you had to be lucky to get a book which explained the most basic things, like how to use sprites on the Commodore 64 and how to do scrolling. And the same is true with the Amiga. When I started to develop for the Amiga, there was no real documentation which gathered all aspects of how to use the blitter chip, how to use the copper chip properly, how to use the sprite DMA of the Amiga computer properly, and how to use some things with the Paula sound chip. One example, the Amiga has built-in sprites. It has like 8 sprites, which are small, tiny, movable objects. He can multiplex them like the Commodore 64 can, but I did not find any documentation how this actually would work when I started to develop for the Amiga computer. So I used a technique which I already used on the Commodore 64, which is called raster interrupt. This is working actually on the Amiga too, but it's way too complicated. The Amiga can do it much more easily. It can do it all by yourself. It can multiplex a whole lot of sprites without the coder being involved, and I just did not know because I did not have the documentation in the 90s. And I just got to use this technique, which is built into the Amiga, when I started to develop Reshoot, because over the internet, this information is being shared, and there's almost no secret in the Amiga left. Whereas on the Commodore 64, I have the impression they always find new things.
Yeah.
I don't know how this will end. I recently even saw filled vectors running in 50 frames on the Commodore 64, which I could not imagine that this is really running on a Commodore 64. But the YouTube video guys, they say, hey, this is real. So I have to believe it. Yeah. So yeah, as I said, a whole lot of technical documentation is available right now for use to everyone, and this means I can do things which I just did not know, and also I also learned a lot of things about organizing myself, my time, organizing files, organizing graphics, organizing team structures. This is, it's not only about developing an engine and having like 10 or 15 blitter objects on screen moving smoothly, but developing a game also means you have to work with a team, you have to build up a team, you have to organize a team, you have to keep your team kind of motivated, you have to keep all the people involved, and you know you have to talk to them occasionally, and just give them the feeling that they are involved, and you really respect the work they do, especially on a retro game, because that usually, Martin knows this, usually means you don't get paid for your work, simply because you don't get money. I mean, I don't get money, and Martin does not get money. We all do it for fun of it, really, basically. And now that means if you don't get money, you have to get some other means of compensation. And that means motivation, nice words, probably a free beer at the Gamescom show.
Working with a VIP game developer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I have to say it's not just getting the feeling you are involved. To be honest, we had some phone calls, you remember, and at the end, we had, as a team, we had what's the word for Möglichkeit? We had
possibilities.
We just had the possibility to talk to Richard and say, hey, what do we say about this? And we had some ideas, and we talked about it, and we got instant response and could develop some ideas. Or he just said, hey, I had this idea, what about this and that? And we could talk together, and this is so much fun, because you know at the end there's something like this.
Yeah,
you can take your hands, you can play it, and it's so cool to be in the project, in an Amiga game project at the end. It's just like a dream. When I was a child, it was a dream of me, and now we're sitting here and talking via Skype.
So you always wanted to work with Richard Löwenstein.
Well, I don't know if it was Richard, and to be honest, I played the Persian Gulf Inferno, but just on the Amiga, so I don't know if it wasn't your version, wasn't it?
No. That was from guys called Parsec Software.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. He did the conversion on the C64.
Yeah.
But Martin, appreciate. I mean, if I had a little bit more time, which I do not have because of family and job and always, but I would Skype some more often, and exchange more ideas and work a little bit more on details. But that's a balance, because working on the retro game means you have a private life, you have a job to do because you want to earn money, real money, and that means you only have a few hours to spend every week. And Martin, if I stay up at night, which I do quite often, and I write messages to Martin, I at first I never expected to get an answer before 2 or 3 days after I sent my message. But Martin also almost replied instantly very often. So he's as crazy as me.
Well, not that crazy as you, because often I talk to Joerg via Skype when we are.
Yeah, because we are working on projects too.
to be honest, we're Skyping almost every 2 days, and then I just say, oh, it's Richard. Oh, finally, then I can respond here and do some things there. And so when I did the samples, the sound effects for the escalation part and the weapon part, we were just Skyping together with AJ and Joerg. It's all people here in one place. It's perfect.
That is awesome. We were doing the Let's Play of Thimbleweed Park, right?
Yeah.
I remember that part. Yeah.
While you're talking about escalation, I finished this part right now, so it means and it's really great. It's just great. It's you have your music playing and then fading out.
Okay.
And then you have a little bit of a pause, just a little bit of a dramatic pause, and then you have like the first 2 or 3 beats of the boss track, of the boss music track, and then you have escalation. The boss enters the screen, and that's really nice. It actually works quite well. And as soon as the boss is history, the music fades out again, and the main track fades in again at the same how do you say place? At the same minute and second where it was fading out. So
cool.
Yeah, because I did not want anything to lose, because the music is so great, and I wanted to have people. Yeah, really, I really wanted to have people to listen to the whole track and not just the first minute. Every time it fades back in. So, and it's quite nice. I will do a video pretty soon, and I hope I can include this situation.
Escalation part. All because of Scene World. Here we go.
Yeah. Here we go. Nice.
Yeah. So I totally can understand how you feel about working with the team, because I have the same feeling often when we finally produce a new issue or a new video. I'm like, wow, we did it again. So I totally understand.
Yes.
Right. So when will it be released?
Okay, I've got a time schedule, and this looks like this. The plan is to show the game at the Gamescom show. I will be attending the show as a guest at the booth of the Return magazine, and the game.
I will be there too.
So see you there. The game will be playable. If all goes the way I'm planning right now, we will have a kind of a high score contest, because there will be a global high score table included in the game, which means you can enter the score you achieve into a web-based high score table, and after that. I want to release the game at the Amiga 32 gathering, which is happening end of October in Neuss in Germany.
But I will be there too.
Okay.
So I will follow your steps.
But stalking you. They'll be right behind you every minute.
That's just a plan. Right now, I have to be honest. I'm not sure if this will work out. Because
maybe for Santa.
Sorry?
Maybe for Santa. You know Christmas, Santa Claus?
Okay. I don't think we're talking about 1 or 2 months later, but more like 4 or 5 months later, because I'm not yet sure if I want to really put a whole lot of finishing touches and 2 or 3 additional levels, which would mean that the game is not going to be released this year. I'm not too sure about that. It's so the plan is end of October, but it could be later, as always with a computer.
Well, some games like Duke Nukem took over 15 years to come out. So.
Yeah. Right. No, that's not going to happen, because I'm not someone who's easy to motivate for longer than 1 year. So if I'm working on a game for much longer than 1 year, then probably my motivation will fade away, and I cannot allow this to happen. So it's going to be released within the time frame October to February 2018.
Well, that's a fair deal. Yeah.
Get a more. We have a more concrete release date on this than we do on most commercial games.
Yeah, normally it's summer 2017, summer 2018.
It's a little bit difficult to decide on that, because that again there are so many issues you have to keep in mind. Like, for example, you have to. I want to release the game in a CD box like this one, but this means that this costs money. Producing something like that is not for free. It just costs money, and I have a campaign running on Patreon right now, where I where I try to collect some money to where I try to raise some money, which enables me to to produce these things. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work. There's almost no one participating. I don't know exactly the reasons because I've already talked about the game at different gatherings, and I think I already did a lot of things. Well, not too many things, but some things. But all of these things, they didn't really bring in one single contributor or Patreon to spend money. So and this means that I have to find other ways to finance this. And I have, to be honest, I have not really a good idea so far how to pay for this in order to be able to release it. So it will happen anyway, but it will probably happen later so that I can gather a little bit more money, because right now I have I'm not too sure, about 10 or 12 Patreons, which is, well, it's very nice to have these people, but I would have expected to have 50 or 100 or something like that.
I feel like the problem with Patreon, or maybe what causes people to hesitate is the fact that with Patreon, isn't it? It's like a monthly donation that you make.
Exactly. Yes.
Right, and I feel like some people would kind of squirm at the idea of making the regular donation, whereas something like a Kickstarter or something like that, where they can put in their donation and be done with it and not have to worry about a recurring thing, would probably draw more people into it, especially since you can show them, hey, this is actually being developed. And a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, it's like, we'd like to make a game, but we really have we've got nothing set up for it. We have no idea what we're doing. Whereas you've got something concrete down. You've already got the game, however much % done. So it would be there'd be a lot more behind getting people to contribute to that, I think.
Well, if you worry about not getting all the money, you can go on flexible funding on Indiegogo. That's also a possibility.
Too. Right, yeah.
Yeah. So what AJ mentioned is we are talking to a lot of game developers and stuff, or composers who do their orchestral remix album, and they all use Indiegogo or Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually true. Yeah,
you're probably right. Probably it was a wrong decision to spend my time and energy on Patreon. Probably I should have used another channel to try to gather some money. I still can change that. I mean, I could still go for Indiegogo, because right now I've already learned that Patreon so far doesn't work.
Right. Maybe you could do both. You could do, do Patreon and Indiegogo.
Yes, adding to it. I mean, that is what a lot of people actually doing. They are using Kickstarter or Indiegogo and Mega Funder, which is another platform. Or after the Indiegogo or Kickstarter is over, they say, okay, make additional pledges by PayPal, Mm-hmm. So there are possibilities.
I just took notes. I will keep take care about this next week. Yeah.
And we will make sure that this is getting spread on Amiga News and all the other platforms
we'll
we are on.
We'll link to the Patreon and to everything else. I mean, if there's an Indiegogo by the time we release this, we'll link to that too.
Sure. I mean, this wouldn't be the first project that we helped raising money,
Oh, that would be nice.
Right.
Okay.
So I think we got it covered from my side.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Hey, guys, really was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks
it
for
was
sitting
fun.
with us.
By the way, is there any way we could mention Kevin Saunders, who did the graphics on the game?
Absolutely.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
We should. This is
of
course.
His work is fantastic.
And because Kevin is he's such an amazing guy. He again, as me, he learned a lot from the first Reshoot game. And the reason why I love to work with Kevin Saunders is that he knows what an Amiga can do, and he also knows what an Amiga can't do. And this is so important because when I started developing Reshoot R, I I thought about, okay, what do I want to achieve with this game, and I wanted to achieve a more visual experience. So my first thought was, why not approach some high school students who learn to work with modern graphing tools right now. So I talked to 2 or 3 guys, and I quickly learned that, well, these people just don't know how to work with 16 colors, because right now you're not counting colors, you're just using them. You're using like 16.7 million colors, and you don't count them. You just fill the screen, you just compose, and you just put some details, and that's basically what you do. But I need someone who can draw nice graphics and also knows that a sprite on the Amiga 1200, it can't be wider than 64 pixels. It's just not possible, So if someone sends me, I got an email from someone who criticized the spaceship from the first Reshoot game. He said it's not looking like a spaceship, and then I said him, okay, so send me a spaceship you would like to have in a possible successor. So what he did was he sent me a rendered picture. Yeah. And I replied, okay, so now this is a rendered picture of a spaceship. So how am I supposed to put this into my game? It's a full screen spaceship. It looks kind of nice. Yeah, right. But it's not animated. It's way too big. It can't be used in a game. It can't be put into a small Amiga sprite. It's just not possible. And it probably uses like 16 million colors. And the Amiga can just display a single sprite has 3 colors. And if you use 2 sprites and combine them, you have 16 colors. But that's the maximum amount of colors you can have on an Amiga sprite, or 15 colors plus transparent to be precise. And a lot of people just don't respect these borders, these technical limitations. Whereas Kevin just knows them, and what he does not know, he listens to me, And when I tell him, okay, we built up the whole landscape from tiles, and these tiles, these small little blocks of graphics, they are 32 by 32 pixels. He does not send me tiles which are 34 by 40 because he prefers to have these dimensions. He just sends me what I need because that's what I can use. Because of technical limitations, the Amiga just uses 32 by 32 pixels. I mean, you could use some other dimensions, but everything else would slow the game down. And whereas 32 by 32 pixels is really a fast way of drawing graphics, and at least in my engine. And Kevin just knows that, and he still delivers graphics which to me really look great, just great. And we will, I'm really happy to show the people in a forthcoming video or at Gamescom show what Kevin Saunders already has achieved.
Cool. And he is one of such students, or he did Amiga graphics before?
Well, he's just, how should I say? No, he's not a student. He's also like me. He's a family guy. He has kids. He's living in Australia. He has a job, and he has to take a lot of things. He has to take care of a lot of things in a life of an adult. But he's also drawing pictures, with conventional methods of drawing and painting, and but he also loves pixeling stuff.
Okay, so he has the pixeling experience. That was,
of course,
was my question as well.
He learned to work with pixels while working on some other games which were unfortunately never released or never published, and now Reshoot was the first game which he ever worked on which was actually published. Now that's, a lot of people in the Amiga scene, they tend to have big plans, having a great game, doing a big arcade conversion of a game, and they underestimate the amount of work which is necessary to put all these puzzle pieces which are necessary to have a game. It's not just some bits of graphics, some bits of sound, and then you have a game. No, you also have to have collision detection. You have a lot of bugs to take care of. You have a lot of things like player management, object management. You have to write code for taking care of all objects in your game when they appear and when they disappear and stuff like that. That all takes away a lot of time, and that's a lot of people underestimate the amount of work which is needed to get a game together. And so Kevin Saunders' first published work is actually Reshoot, but he already did some other works. He's currently, by the way, he's also working on a conversion of the arcade game Rygar, which I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. This is one project which to me looks like one of these projects which will probably take too much time, so they probably won't get released. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and this Rygar conversion for the Amiga is really going to happen, because what I have seen so far looks good, but it's just a tiny bit. It's just a portion of the first level, whereas the arcade game has like 30 levels or something like that. So there's a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Well, good things come to those who wait.
Yeah, no. Again, it's the problem is always how to keep the motivation high, and it's just it's really difficult to motivate not only yourself but also the people involved. Like, I mean, if Martin, for example, if I worked for the game on Reshoot R for not 1 year, but probably 2 or 4 or 6 years. And every 2 months I will tell you, Martin, okay, your music is going to be used. Your music is going to be used. Yeah, but it's never happening. Yeah,
nah, sure.
It just would be frustrating for you. Yeah, and everyone else involved in the project. So you have to keep a time frame. That's.
Well, I just have an example here. For example, the newest Oliver Twin games from 1992. Just got released. Dreamworld Pogi. So it only took some years.
Yeah.
But it's finally getting released after over 25 years.
Which platform is that?
NES.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Oliver Twins did the Dizzy games. They were very famous. And they had a lot of games in the in the 92 area that were finished but never commercially released. And now Chris Wilkins is actually working with them to release any unfinished game they had in the shelves. So this
is an Oliver Twins production.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
It's even signed. I don't know.
Great.
You can see it. It's golden. It's even signed by them. So yeah.
That's nice. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes it takes 25 years for games to get out.
We won't wait this long for Reshooter.
People get old nowadays, so. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking that much of time, Richard, so we could cover all your past and present and future.
Oh, there will be so much more to tell.
So we probably will meet again when the game is released.
Yeah.
Well, I will be happy to talk about a bit more, probably more technical things, or how it was. How it worked on the Gamescom show, showing a game at the Gamescom show is actually quite interesting. I can tell you.
We can do that. Yeah, we can do a follow-up, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah. if you would like to talk to us again in the future.
Okay. So, guys, again, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, inviting me to, and I really look forward to listen to myself.
Yeah, the only podcast where 3 German people and 1 American talk into English.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, see you guys. Bye.
All right.
Bye bye.
And that was Richard Löwenstein and Martin Amann talking about their new game, Reshoot R. Again, if you want to learn more about the game, check out their Patreon at www.patreon.com/Loewenstein. And that's Loewenstein. Links to all this will be in the description. And when you go there, be sure to click on the button to become a patron and help this solid game to actually get made. Us, you know where to find us, but be sure to also check out our new news portal at c64.tv. Until next time, this is the Scene World Podcast. Bye.